As a kid, I didn't see black cowboys on the screen. What that said to me was that there were things I couldn't do or be because of my color. What we see others like us do gives us permission to expand our own horizons. That is a quote from Walter Dean Myers. And it's at the very beginning of Sherrill Joseph's Walnut Street Phantom Rider. Welcome, Sherrill.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's good to see you.
Yeah. And that quote speaks so much to, I don't know, current times, to being a person of color. I think it's a really, really important thing for people to hear.
It is. Well, and the irony is I actually wrote this book back in 2018. But that's even more relevant now. Black Lives Matter as a movement actually started in 2013, but so that was very much in my mind. It also comes from being a teacher, and I always had very diverse populations of students, so I was always in tune with that.
Yeah. So today we're talking about your latest book, which isn't on the shelves yet,
right?
But it's coming soon. So Walnut Street Phantom Rider opens with the history lesson about Bass Reeves, who was a Black legislator who arrested over 3,000 felons. He was a real life role model for one of your fictional characters.
Right.
Yeah, tell us about that.
He was a lawman actually in the 1875. He had been born in Arkansas in 1838 as a slave, born into slavery. And he was not allowed to learn how to read or write, which was pretty typical of how slaves were treated then. During the Civil War, he escaped from his owner and from Arkansas and took himself to what was called the Indian Territory at that time, which we now know as Oklahoma. And he lived among at least 5 different tribes of Native Americans. They trusted him more than they did the white man. He just really resonated with them, and I guess vice versa. He really enjoyed learning their languages. He learned their customs. He learned how to track and ride horses and shoot guns while living with the Indians or the Native Americans. And then he returned to the South after the Civil War ended. In 1875, because he was such a good detective and he knew the Indians' customs, he was offered the position of Deputy United States Marshal if he would return to Oklahoma to bring back, dead or alive, many outlaws who were hiding there. And so he became the first African-American Deputy United States Marshal west of the Mississippi as of that time.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a very interesting man.
It sounds like a fascinating story. And then you've based one of the characters in this recent book on Bass Reeves.
Right.
Who's the character?
His name is Aloysius Mayfield, but people called him Papa Mayfield. He also was African American, and he was a deputy marshal, U.S. Marshal, but in California. So I set him in the gold mining areas of California. So he was there to maintain order and bring felons to justice in that area. And so then as the story goes on in my head, he became very wealthy, as did Bass Reeves, the real Papa Mayfield. And he moved to Southern California when he found out that there was gold in here. I say here because I live in San Diego, California. There was gold here too, up in the mountains. And so he moved here to try his hand at mining for gold himself.
Hmm.
So that's how the character evolved from the real person.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So Walnut Street is the third novel in your Botanic Hill mysteries. And
Mhm.
these mysteries star 4 kids, Moki Kalani, Rani Kumar, and the twins, Lanny and Lexi Wyatt.
Mhm.
So we're talking about the book as if we already know these 4 kids because, you know, I've read one of the other books
Mhm.
and Walnut Street. But so tell us a little bit more about your inspiration for this particular story.
Ah, okay. Well, I pulled out of my cupboard my Nancy Drew book, The Secret at Shadow
Oh my
Ranch.
gosh, I'm pretty sure I read that.
Yeah, it's book number 5, I think it is. Yeah,
Is
it's
it?
book number 5. And I have the entire collection of all the books. But I pulled this one out because this inspired me. I was really mesmerized by this whole concept of being on a ranch and riding a horse when I was a kid. So I knew someday if I was going to write, I would definitely have to have a story set on a ranch. But there were some other factors too that influenced me to write about a ranch. One is that my daughter and I rode horses.
Mm.
She started taking riding lessons in the 90s when she was a teenager. And then when she went away to college in 1999, I started taking riding lessons from the same equestrian center where she was, a different horse, I believe, but same instructor, same place here in San Diego. And I fell in love with it. It was, like I said, I have this thing about the romance of the West, and I love Westerns and all that, television shows, movies, and all those things. And so that's kind of, I think those things together led me to write this story. And my dream is to go up to Montana and do cowgirl yoga someday.
Well, it makes me ask what is different with cowgirl yoga than regular yoga.
Well, it's because you go to it's like a dude ranch you go to for a week or two. I think it's a week or two. And you could start your day with yoga, and then you do horseback riding during the day. But the woman who owns the horse ranch actually does the yoga in lessons too.
That
So
sounds really
a little
cool.
Western is obviously going to be a little Western twist on that Eastern practice.
But it does sound
Interesting to
fun.
see.
It
Yeah.
does sound fun. So Walnut Street takes the kids, your detectives,
Uh-huh.
to this dude ranch where they're hired to investigate a series of robberies. And this ranch is also a very special place. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's a horse therapy ranch. In this case, it's for kids with emotional and behavioral issues, could be disabilities. My background is education. I was not a special education teacher, but I certainly worked with many. But when I was taking horseback riding lessons at the Equestrian Center here in San Diego, it is not technically a horse therapy ranch, or as some people call it, a hippotherapy, meaning horses, therapy on horseback. It was not a horse, technically per se, a horse therapy equestrian center, but I still noticed that most of the people who were coming on Saturday mornings when I rode and when my daughter had ridden were kids. And some of them started out with some issues. And I noticed as weeks went by, some of those issues were disappearing. As soon as the horses came into the arena, they had something else to think about. And so that was the magic of horses. I think it was Winston Churchill who said something like, there's nothing better for the inside of a man than the outside of a horse. And we can say man, we can take man and make it woman, children, humanity, whatever we want to say. But I really do think that that's true. There's something almost spiritual about being around horses that can bring about healing for people who have medical issues as well. gentle movement of horses are often used for people who've had spinal injuries to help them. And so I think that was the kernel of the idea also for adding that in to my story.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
I think it's great that you're touching on subject matter like that for kids to read.
Yeah,
You
thank you.
know, I think it helps them to know that, you know, not everybody is the same as them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that there are remedies out there if you have problems. I always try to, that's one of my big messages in the book is look around for the solutions to problems. Don't just wallow in your problems. You know, ask your parents to do some research, investigate that there are things you can do out there to get help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so you've told me that you've had some experience with riding,
Right.
and the kids get to experience, you know, sometime on the horses themselves. They also get to experience the phantom rider in the flesh.
Right.
There's a masked man on a white horse, and they believe him to be the person stealing from the ranch. But there's more, because there's talk that the ranch had a gold mine on the property, and the stakes are very high for this group of youngsters. So is it difficult to write your kids into these dangerous situations?
Yes and no. I'll start with the no part because I think kind of like what we were talking about with Walter Dean Myers, you know, you know what you experience, you know, you discover that, oh, okay, if these detectives can do it, I can do it, or I can give it a try or whatever. You know, you see yourself in books is what it's about, or see your potential in books. And so when I say no, it doesn't bother me to put them into that. It's because we all get into trouble. Kids get into trouble. And, you know, it's nice if they have a way of reaching into their minds or hearts and souls and going, oh, okay, I think I already have a solution for that because in so-and-so I read, you know, the character did this, so I'm going to try that kind of thing. So, you know, childhood is all about making mistakes and learning from your mistakes so you don't repeat those as an adult. Well, I think those are good reasons to kind of put my detectives in danger. But the yes part, where it bothers me is because I kind of see my detectives as my children and putting them in those scary situations kind of bothers me a little bit. But again, I'm also trying to show that they have strong supports in place with the adults around them. And the Mayfield parents who run the horse therapy ranch are very strong adults who have taught their children ingrained a lot of good teaching in them as far as behavior and safety and what you can do and what you can't do. But of course, they're going to push the envelope anyway, which is what kids do, but it also furthers the plot of the story, which you have to do. You know?
Yeah.
That's what an author does.
And just to say it out loud, you are not advocating for kids to go out and try some of these things on their own.
No, that's why, like, the message in the story is that the Mayfield parents will always say, like, if you're not back by 3 o'clock, you better call us or we will come looking for you. In fact, you know, that does happen in the story. Both those things happen in the story. So, you know, they allow the kids enough freedom, which I think is also important. It's kind of a message for parents. Sometimes you just have to let the kids go out there and fall down and skin their knee, you know.
Right.
So the parents are smart enough to know that they have to allow their kids some leeway in adventure, but then also bring your common sense into it and your knowledge of what we expect as your parents and, you know, and the support you have in place to deal with issues. So that was a dance I was trying to make all the way through the story. And that's what you have to do with in middle grade literature. You have to keep that dance going the whole time. You know, how much danger, when to pull back, what supports to put in place. How much do you let the kids like break the rules? And they break the rules occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what would you say to kids who read your mysteries who want to try their hand at solving mysteries?
Mm, I'd say go for it. You know, I think uh, you can also, it could be a service to your community for one thing. That's a message I try to get across in my books, that that's what the detectives are doing. They love helping their community by solving mysteries or helping people with their problems.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes you just have to step out and do the hard work. Um, but also, you know, make sure you've got your friends and family there behind you to support you.
Right.
You know, let people know where you're going and what you're going to do and where you're going to be, as the kids are constantly they're constantly sharing with the Mayfield parents, here's our plan for today. And then, you know, the parents will say yes or no, and then they have to decide, well, you know, plan B or whatever, you know. So there's a lot of messages about that.
Right.
Don't just say, oh, I'm not going to take any risks. Go ahead
Yeah.
and try it. I found this quote by John Wayne. Not my favorite actor in the world, even though he was a big Western dude, but he said something like, courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. So that's kind of what these kids do. You know, Moki especially is scared to death of this whole mystery because he knows he's putting himself into snake country.
Yeah.
And he's very snake phobic. And he has some run-ins with snakes. Sure enough, very predictable. He's going to have run-ins with snakes, and he did. And you know, and how does he deal with that? You know, how do they move on after they've had issues, where their issues have come up and, you know, right in front of them, literally? How do they deal with that? So it's all about helping kids through taking risks, I think, too. Especially this book, especially this one. Because you're right, the kids, the 4 detectives and then the 2 Mayfield kids are really on their own a lot, actually out, you know, riding horses and doing a lot of things alone.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sherrill, for your insights. And will you let readers know where they can find your book, and or when to be looking for pre-orders and all of that?
Well, my target publication date is November 9th, but you're certainly welcome to check on Amazon for pre-order availability for the ebook version. And shortly after that, the paperback version will be available. So I'm hoping sometime between Halloween and November 9th. Could be a little earlier, but certainly no later than that.
Well, and it'll be available for sure just in time for Christmas.
Absolutely. In time for the holidays, holiday shopping. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
And then, you know, there's books 1 and 2. So you can get all 3 at the same time, get the trilogy.
Exactly.
They're all standalone, however, they can be purchased individually and read out of order. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, and Sherrill's website will be in the dialogue below, and be sure to follow her on Blackbird Writer's website and on her own website. She has an awesome email newsletter, by the way, if you're looking for fun recipes and just fun news about her characters and great things to do with your kids. So thanks so much, Sherrill.
Thank you very much. I loved it. This was so much fun.
All right. Bye.
Bye.